Great. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see the appropriate screen. My name is Danielle Maynard. I'm the director of the DPAC HBCU Mentoring Program. This is going to be recorded, so if you miss anything, you can find most of the session on YouTube in a few days, so you can look out for that. And I'll jump right in. So what is this DPAC Mentoring Program? This is a program we started here at Hopkins that matches trainees, so graduate students, postdocs, clinical fellows, etc. here at Hopkins with undergraduates at HBCUs. We currently are matching students at Morgan State, Coppin State, and Norfolk State. So if you're from one of these institutions and you would like to be matched with a mentor, you can scan this QR code and complete the Menti form. Put as much information as possible to help us match you with the appropriate mentor. Once you guys are matched, then you're expected to interact in a meaningful way at least once a month, so Zoom or in person, and of course coordinate otherwise. Get help with your applications and advice on navigating undergrad and going into grad school and things of that nature. If you're not from one of these institutions but you would like to have a mentor, you can send an email to this email address and we'll try to see what we can work out. All right, so I'm gonna move on. We're here to talk about summer programs. How do you choose a summer program? Google is your friend. I use it as well as your social media platforms. There are people who share these kinds of things often. I would follow them. If there's an institution that you can see yourself at for grad school or med school or dental school, you can search for programs specifically at those institutions. Also, if there's a state you think you might want to live in or a region that you think you want to spend some time in, then you can search for those sub areas for programs as well. But of course, if there's a discipline that you already know you're interested in, bioengineering, pharmacology, you can search those terms as well for summer programs, and sometimes there are programs that are specific to a particular. Your mentors, ask them, your professors, people you're doing research with, what programs they're aware of, which ones they might recommend, as well as your network. So your peers, the other people in your science classes, people who are a year, 2 years ahead of you, ask them which programs they've done, which ones they liked. And you can also reach out to programs directly. So I would avoid vague emails like, tell me more about your program. But certainly if you have a specific question and it's not answered on the website, oftentimes there's an email address, and don't be afraid to use it. You can usually get a lot of helpful information. So I'll say up front that a lot of what goes into your application really is based on most of what you've done before you start applying. So we're going to talk about some of those before application considerations. The first is your coursework. This is your primary focus while you're in undergrad. This is the main thing you really should be putting most of your energy into, especially since it is the most difficult and often very expensive thing to try to compensate for after the fact. So for instance, you spend 4 years, you miss key courses you should have taken, you get poor grades in your organic and your math and the important stuff. Trying to make up for that after becomes a challenge, right? You may have to go to get a master's, or you may need to spend more time in undergrad or try to do courses while you're working a full-time job. And that becomes very difficult, much more so than trying to do the other stuff. So all the other things you're doing, whether it's research, volunteering, shadowing, you can do that a bit more easily after you graduate than trying to make up for coursework. Also, in the STEM majors, most times the content that you're learning now is the foundation for everything else. So there's some majors where you kind of just need to get a degree and then you get the job and then you learn the job on the job. But a lot of STEM is you building on your basic knowledge and adding more to that. So for example, in the summer, if you come to my lab, I can spend 2 days teaching you how to do a Western blot. But what I cannot do in those 2 days is teach you the biology and physics and chemistry that goes into you understanding what a Western blot is and how it works and so forth and so on. So really the summer helps to bring alive what you've been learning in theory in the classroom, and it's much more meaningful if you took the time to actually understand the material while you had the opportunity to. Also, grad school and med school is going to build on what you know now. So if you didn't learn it well now, it becomes so much more difficult later on to try to catch up. You have to consider too that your coursework provides a standardized metric, which is your GPA, and that can be used to compare or assess students across multiple institutions. So for instance, if there's a summer program with 10 spots and there are 300 applications, one of the best ways to get that down to 150 to properly review applications is sometimes going to be to use the GPA, because that's sort of a standard thing. So the higher your GPA is, the more likely you are to have your application be reviewed. But we don't just look at the number, we also look at the actual transcript. So what courses are you taking? This is where your mentors and advisors come in to make sure that you're taking the appropriate courses and that you're getting the good grades in those courses. So you may have a bunch of A's in swimming and, basket weaving, but, what about organic chem and so forth and so on. Now, this is not to say that if your coursework isn't ideal, that if you don't have a 4.0, or if you had a challenging time your freshman year, that one bad semester, that all hope is lost. I'm not saying that at all. There are always ways to make up for that and to try and improve the GPA and so forth and so on. But it is a difficult thing to do. So I would say if you can focus on it now, that's where I put my focus. So if you're doing research on the site and you're volunteering, you're doing all these other things and your coursework is suffering, I would put some of those things on the back burner. Work on the coursework first, get the tutor, go to office hours, which you should do whether or not your grades are bad. Use all the resources available to you and work on getting the coursework where it needs to be. And then when that's doing well, then you can start adding some of the other things. So one of the other things is your research experience. And I recommend you start local. One mistake I think a lot of students make is, I want to do HIV research. My institution doesn't have HIV research, so I'm just going to chill for the year and then I'll apply to Hopkins in the summer. The problem is when you send your application to us and we see that you're at an institution that does have research and you haven't taken advantage, then we're wondering, are you actually genuinely interested in research, or do you just want to come to Baltimore for the summer? So that's one consideration. But beyond that, doing research at your local institution is a fantastic time for exploration and self-discovery, right? Figuring out what you think you might like. Go and talk to multiple PIs or labs, talk to other students. What are you doing in the lab? What exactly do you do? Can I come and shadow for a day? Can I come to lab meeting? And it helps you to kind of figure out, well, this stuff seems more interesting, this stuff not as much, and that could also help you figure out which summer programs might be a good fit for you. You also gain very fundamental skills at that stage that help later on. So again, maybe you do want to do HIV research, but there are only chemistry labs at your institution. You still get to learn how to use a scale and measure things, do the appropriate calculations, safety rules and things like that in the lab that you can carry over. Maybe there are only psychology labs, but you learn about data collection and data analysis, statistics, all those things carry over into so many other fields of research. So take advantage of getting those basic skills. And of course, you get to build your network. You automatically get a new mentor when you join a lab typically, and there are usually other people in the lab who become very helpful. Now, if you say, hey, there's no research at all at my institution, it doesn't mean all hope is lost. Number one, you can look for other institutions nearby, whether it's a state school that's closest to you or a smaller school, and reach out and see if there are opportunities there. But otherwise, take advantage of all the things you can do, whether it's journal club, literature reviews, and so forth, while you're at your local institution, so that when you apply to the summer programs, you can say, look, I really, really want to do this, but it's just not available to me. But I've done all the things I can do, and now I'd like to come to your institution to do more. Now, the best advice I think I can give for the actual application process is to read and follow the instructions. And it's so important, I'm going to put it in multiple languages. Maybe it'll resonate if it's in your native language, but you should absolutely read the instructions thoroughly and try to start early. The earlier you start, the more time you have to make sure you fix things and get things done properly. So some of the components, your personal and research statement, again, read the instructions. Sometimes you get a really nicely written essay that never answered the question that was asked, and you don't want to be that person. You start early enough, you can get peer review, have your classmates or maybe your peer mentors review for language and typos. That's important as well. But of course, your content, your mentors, if you did research with a specific person and you're putting a little paragraph about it, have them review that and make sure that the content is accurate, make sure that you said it the right way. And then for your resume, first thing I would say is 1 page is usually enough. Whether it's a resume or CV, usually 1 to 2 pages. If it's a CV, 1 page for a resume at this stage. If you have more, you're probably just putting things you don't need to. You don't always need to submit this. So again, read the instructions. But if you do, a few tips, of course, make sure that your name is very apparent. I shouldn't have to search to figure out whose resume it is. You do not need to include a physical address of your, especially your home address. If we need it, we typically will ask. I don't find things like objectives and summaries and so on very useful on these type of 1-page resumes for these purposes. I would start with the important stuff, your education, any undergrad institution you've attended. So if you did community college first, or if you transferred from a different institution, you include those as well. I would include your major and definitely your expected graduation date. Once you've gotten your first GPA from undergrad, you can remove your high school stuff. So after your freshman year, at least after that second semester, and you have a GPA for here, we don't need this anymore. And then your experience. So this may be research experience or it may be relevant experience. So that includes your volunteering, your shadowing, your clinical type things. Here I'm giving 2 examples: research that was done at a local institution over time, as well as summer research, and both are useful to include. I would include the full name of the PI, department if you have it, and a descriptive title of the research that you did. That gives us an idea of, okay, what you were doing. Because you have a whole application, you're probably writing a personal research statement and describing more. You don't need to put more details here, but if this were a standalone resume, it wouldn't hurt to put a line or 2 describing sort of what your role was in the individual research projects. If you have any posts or oral presentations, I would include them. Here I'm showing not just my name, but the name of all the authors. If you're not sure who should be included as authors on your poster, you should ask the person you did research with and what order they should be in. And here I'm showing one poster that was presented at 2 different places. So instead of rewriting the information for the poster 5 times, 5 different meetings, you can just list it one time and then list the places that it was presented, and that saves space and it's a lot easier for the reviewer to read as well. Any relevant awards or honors, lab skills are not required, but if you have any, you can include them. Don't include things that you kind of saw one time and kind of know how to do it. Put stuff that you're actually competent at doing. And then your other activities. So, if there are any clubs or groups or things you're in that are not necessarily relevant to STEM and research and so on, they can go here. If you have a job, you can include it here, not necessarily with detail, but just to give us an idea of where your time is going. I would not join clubs and do things just for the sake of this section because it's not really going to help you. But if you're already doing it, it's okay to list it. All right, so your recommendation letters, ask early. I typically recommend if you need 2 letters, ask 3 people at least. Make sure those 2 people are on board. If one of them happens to get sick, get busy, fall off the face of the earth, you have that other person who's already ready and prepared and know that you're going to come and maybe ask for a letter. And then it's your job to follow up and get the letter in on time. The program is not going to do it. And, oftentimes your mentors will get busy and might forget. Who should you ask? The first person should be a research mentor. So if you're doing local research at your home institution, that's the first person. If you did research the previous summer, that's the other person. And then your STEM professors. If you have STEM faculty advisors, you can, especially if they know you really well. I would avoid trying to go for, the head of office of the undergrad research if they don't know you well, because then it's going to be a very generic letter. I would go for the people who actually know you. Who not to ask, your high school teachers. If you're still a freshman, and maybe there's that one person who can give a full review of all the work and science and things you did in high school, but make sure that at least one is from your home institution. And again, read your instructions, because sometimes the instructors will specifically say not to include high school reference letters. I would avoid non-STEM faculty as well, and definitely no community members or family members. Now, of course, if you have 2, if you need 3 letters and 2 of them are STEM professors, and then there's that one English professor you had since freshman year, and they know your entire journey and all your challenges, and they can give a really, really good review of who you are as a student and your resilience and your work ethic and so on, maybe. But generally, you should go for your STEM professors. So you get into the program. What do you do next? I would reach out before arrival. Most times you get an email, you're going to be joining this lab, here's the email. If they reach out to you first, great. But if not, it's okay to send an email and say, hey, thanks for the opportunity, looking forward to it. Is there any material you would suggest I read? And if they send it, read it. You're not expected to understand all of it or figure it all out, but it can give you a good idea of what's happening in the lab. It could generate some questions for you to come with so that you can get a good start. And then ask a lot of questions as you go along. Why do we do it this way? What does this actually do? What does this mean? When you don't understand something, please let your preceptors know. This is usually one of the biggest barriers to students having a full experience, is that they don't let the person they're working with know that, well, actually, I don't understand what this means, or I don't understand why we're doing this. So definitely ask. And your preceptors typically are going to appreciate when you let them know that, you're not understanding. Try to interact with your PI. Most times you're going to be matched with a grad student, a postdoc, or something like that. And then there's a PI who's the head of the lab. A lot of times they're going to be the ones who reach out to you. They're going to interact with you. It's going to happen. But if not, it's okay to be proactive and try to interact with them at least 3 times, somewhere in the beginning, the middle, and the end. This might mean asking your preceptor, hey, should I schedule an appointment, or can I just stop by the office for 5 minutes, and go and introduce yourself and let them know you're enjoying the experience, and so forth and so on. And then stay in touch, both with your PI and preceptor. I'd say for a PI, 1 email a year or a semester is fine. Hey, this is what I've been up to since, and so on. And that could make it helpful or a bit easier when you try to reach out for recommendation letters. Enjoy the learning, right? Ask to shadow other members. So you're doing some cool stuff with postdoc over here, but somebody over there is doing something completely different. Just ask them, hey, could I shadow you one day? Talk to other people in the group that you're with, because they're also doing very cool projects and you might learn something. But for sure, observe, participate in as many things as you can, and absolutely enjoy. All right, so I'm going to now pass the baton over to Dr. Kathy Wilson, who's going to speak about the RCSM program here at Hopkins.
Thanks, Danielle. That was fabulous. I apologize for not having my face on here, but I'll jump right into it. The program I'm going to describe is an initiative. It actually includes some high school programs, not relevant here, and the summer internship program. And I also am going to give you a little next step in the pathway information. So Hopkins actually has more than 15 different summer internship programs in different areas of biomedical science. And when you apply, which I urge you to do, you'll get the chance to choose 3 specific summer programs of interest to you. And what you want to do is check them out, because if I start with examples down below here, the Institute for Nanobiotechnology, they take about 16 students a year, and you'll have access there to a lot of faculty in that research area of nanobiotech. Similar for the pulmonary and critical care medicine, that's especially popular for people interested in, well, very topically, COVID lung research, very basic science, as well as very medicine relevant research. So, and neuroscience and computational stuff and genomics, there's many flavors of groups of faculty that you would have access to. So you need to know what you're interested in. You have 3 separate chances. You can apply to 3 programs. You have an independent chance of admission to each program, and the application is free. I've highlighted the top 2 summer programs at Hopkins because these 2, the one that I direct, Careers in Science and Medicine, the CSM SIP, this one, and the Basic Sciences Institute, the BSI SIP, these are the 2 that can match you with faculty anywhere at Hopkins. I've matched students with faculty in the School of Public Health, at the Homewood campus, at the School of Medicine, all over the place. So it's very much tailored to your research interests and goals. And these are the 2 best programs to apply to, just for a little more freedom of exploration in terms of which program, what kind of lab you end up with. I also want to do a shout out for the Neuroscience Scholars Program, because they have a deaf, hard of hearing professor and mentors. So if that research or having that kind of mentor is important to you, I would suggest you click that program. It's very useful. The program that I run, the CSM, go back please. The CSM program is different from all of the other programs in one important way. And that is that eligibility is based on 2 things. One, your family has to have a low income. And this is it's actually measured. We go with a number of no more than twice the federal poverty level of income based on the number of kids in your family. And many of you may fit this criteria. I encourage you to apply. You should also know that about 20% of the more than 1,000 students who apply to all of these summer programs every year, about 20% of them are eligible for the CSM, but which programs they choose depends on their own research interests. The other part of the CSM eligibility is that, and this is an and, not an or, family, low income background, and an under-resourced family situation. For example, either first generation college or a single parent household or other criteria. And if you're wondering if you're eligible on that side, just contact Christina Nance. Next slide, please. And what you'll need, Youll did a beautiful job describing what you need. This is where students tend to have the most questions, so I decided to walk through it. 2 letters of recommendation from faculty, ideally faculty you did past research with, or STEM faculty, taking of someone who taught your chem lab or your bio lab or physics lab or anything, someone who's seen you at work in a lab. And if this is going to be your first actual research experience, no worries. Just tell us that. That's a big reason to need summer research. And I agree with Youll that seeking opportunities locally is the best way to get started in all of this. You may decide you don't like research, and then you know yourself better. So you need 2 letters of recommendation, at least to Hopkins, from people, faculty who know you well. You'll need to get transcripts for any undergrad institution you attended. It's okay if they are unofficial transcripts, your current CV, and for this program only, just one of our 15 or more programs, you need to have proof of family income. You can cover up the Social Security number. We do not want that kind of personal information, just the family income, first page of your tax return. And then the personal statement. People have questions about this because we do not write specific prompts. We truly do want to know about you. And so you can follow these suggestions. Tell us about you, because we don't know anything, just a few dry pages. Your background, your family, your hopes and dreams, any challenges you may have faced or your family may have faced, as much or as little of this as you are comfortable. And remember, it's all about who you are and how you're trying to get to where you want to be. So why do you want or need summer research experience? And if you know, tell us which areas you're interested in. You do not need to tell us what our specific faculty work on, because we know that. But if you're interested in a couple of specific faculty, it's okay to name them, just their names. That's not required though. If you're interested in cancer relevant research or basic, neuroscience research, basic cell biology, the more fundamental the research, actually, the more broadly it will support wherever you go in the future. So don't think that you need to propose that you're going to cure HIV or cure cancer, just your motivation here. What do you want? Are you aiming for going to medical school? Are you aiming for a PhD research career, or are you trying to decide? Tell us as much as you know about yourself, what you're passionate about, and why you think where your motivation or interest in this type of career comes from. Any traits you have that you think might make you a good fit for this kind of career, especially related to research. And I beg you, if you do have any past research experience, for example, in your home institution, tell us about it. Where, when, and who you worked with. It should be a mentor that you've named on your CV. Named. You need to tell us who your mentors are. And if you tested a hypothesis, tell us what the hypothesis was, or what question you were asking. What kinds of strategies or experiments did you use? Did it work? Did it work? People skip that part so often. They say, I got an award, but they never told us if it worked or not. And actually, it's almost as interesting if it did not work, because if your experiments were inconclusive, tell us that. That happens in science. It shows that you realize things are not always perfect. Sometimes there's issues with the experiments that may be technical, or there were unexpected challenges. Tell us about those. And were you able to troubleshoot them or try to troubleshoot them? This is all part of the research experience. And it gives you the most important information, which is what did you learn about either the topic, or especially what did you learn about yourself? Okay, do you love research? So, and then finally, just a little showing where you are in the pathway. You're here, you're thinking about some area or areas of research. From your summer experiences in this big box, hopefully you're gonna learn, you're gonna have a team in the lab you work with, you're gonna think about new things, learn new experimental approaches. Hopefully you'll get to the stage of having a result and being able to analyze it. Whether it works or not, you will definitely have chances to present it to other people in the lab and at the end of the summer with the whole group of almost 120 students. You'll get many questions to ask and to answer, and you'll learn more about yourself. Did you enjoy this world? And the people that you're going to work with are the people, they will expect to write you a letter of recommendation. So don't be shy about reaching back and asking that PI to write a letter for you the following year. Okay, and then depending on what happens during your undergrad experience, if you feel ready, apply straight to graduate programs. That is perfectly wonderful. If you want or need more experience, consider doing post-bac research. There are programs too at Hopkins that pay you a full-time salary and give custom mentoring towards research, towards successful graduate careers. And if you're eligible for the CSM SIP summer program, you are also eligible for the doctoral diversity program. And as a post-bac opportunity, this one is fairly unique in the country because it's the same double eligibility I told you about before. And it's perfectly wonderful if you want to go straight on to medical school only and not do research, or go into a PhD program, or. Okay, all kinds of biomedical careers are possible through this post-bac program. If you're aiming for a PhD or an MD PhD, then Hopkins Prep is something you should also consider applying to for your post-bac. I also run that in addition to the summer program for CSM SIP. And I strongly encourage you to apply to lots of summer programs now as an undergrad at different institutions, and apply similarly to lots of PhD programs or lots of post-bac programs. Ours is one of over 30 prep programs that NIH funds throughout the country. And you want to spread out your chances to have the best possible chance. All the post-bac programs are amazingly good. And they will all help launch you towards the graduate program of your choice. And I'll stop there.
Thank you. And for those interested in post-bac programs, we did have a workshop on that. You can find that on our YouTube channel. So I'll pass over now to hear about the newer program.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for having me, Janiel. My name is Asante Kamkwalala. I'm a research associate in the Department of Neurology, and I'm here to speak about two of our particular programs in neuroscience and neurology, particularly the JH Neurophytes program and the JH Neuroscience Scholars Program. So both of our summer programs are geared towards students ideally in their freshman and sophomore years, because we would like for you to be able to participate over multiple years. The first one is the Johns Hopkins Neuroscience Scholars Program, and this one is a little bit more broadly focused on neuroscience. So you have the option to work with a number of the different professors who are appointed in our department, and also those who may be cross-registered in other departments like epidemiology, psychology, medicine, etc. The JH Neurophytes is a lot more specific. So this is particularly targeted towards individuals who want to study the neurological consequences or comorbidities of HIV. So it does focus on neuroscience, but specifically neuroscience of people who are living with HIV. I also want to bring up for anyone who has maybe high school friends or siblings who might be interested, we also administer the Johns Hopkins Internship in Brain Sciences, and they also do a lot of peer mentorship programs with the students who are in the NSP and the Neurophytes program. So it's a great opportunity to not just start off in the high school program, but then roll into one of the college programs as well. And on the horizon, we also have a computational neuroscience program that's coming up, hopefully that will be funded and be starting next summer. So it's not available yet, but if you are interested in potentially rolling in something like biomedical engineering or computer modeling into a neuroscience degree, that may be something to look out for next summer. So please keep your eyes out for that. Dr. Wilson already talked briefly about some of the summer internship programs. There are a lot of really great offerings here at Johns Hopkins. Some of the ones where you can have a more neuro-related focus is, of course, the BSI SIP program. So that's any type of biological, biomedical, biochemical engineering or related biomedical research. Then the specific neuro SIP, so very similar to our own Johns Hopkins Neuro Scholars Program, focusing on neuroscience, and then also the Kavli SIP. Those all go through the Johns Hopkins SIP SIP website, which is linked here. And so they all have very similar requirements. So for those ones, you must have completed at least 2 years of college by the start of the summer program. You must be either a US citizen, permanent resident, or an international student who's enrolled here in the United States. In particular, though, for these programs, we are looking for people who are interested in a research degree ultimately. So either a PhD or an MD PhD. We are definitely welcome to people who are more interested in the medical field, but we are trying to build a kind of a base of more people, particularly from underrepresented communities who are going into these research positions as well. So the JHNSP and the Neurophytes program are unique in the fact that we particularly are looking for students who are either in underrepresented minority, a first-generation college student, come from a disadvantaged economic family, or are deaf and hard of hearing. That's particularly for the JHNSP. Like Dr. Wilson mentioned, one of the PIs of this research study, he is himself deaf and hard of hearing. So that is one of the particular programs that we are hoping to attract more people who have that disability themselves or would like to learn from somebody with that disability. Again, we're looking for people who are rising college freshmen or sophomores because this is a multi-year program. We would hope that you would start off the summer after your freshman year and then come back for a maximum of 3 summers after that. Again, we're looking for students who are dedicated to pursuing a research degree in the neurosciences for the JHNSP, or the complications in the brain of an HIV infection for the JH Neurophytes program. And then we would like you to be committed to conducting 10 weeks of research for at least 2, and again, I said up to 3 summers here in Baltimore. Next slide, please. So all of these application processes are currently open. The JHNSP and Neurophytes just opened a couple weeks ago. These are the links to the processes. You can see many of our previous scholars. You can see information about many of the mentors that we have available to you. And if the mentor that maybe you're interested in working with is not necessarily on our website, please reach out to us. We could definitely set up to see if you could be matched with that person depending on your interests. Some of the things that go into our application project, of course, demographics, since we are trying to preferentially recruit individuals who are from these underrepresented minority groups. We're going to need your high school and your college transcripts so far. As Janielle mentioned before, we also would like to see a idea of your CV to see if you do have any prior research experience, whether it's through lab or through other on campus at your primary institution. We need 3 letters of recommendation, and then at least 2 of them should be from a science or math teacher or professor that you've done some research with. And all of these letters need to be directly emailed to our program manager, Heather Thomas, and her email address is there. For our program, we have essay questions that are standardized that are given to all of our applicants, but you can kind of think of them as personal statements, because one of the things that we really want to get out of them is who you are as a student, who you would like to be as a researcher, to make sure that we can kind of tailor your experience in the program to the best possible connection, the best possible research that's going to make you the type of scientist you ultimately want to be. All of our applications are due February 1st of 2023, and you'll be contacted about 2-3 weeks after that for your Zoom interviews. And we also want to note that only complete applications will be considered. If there's any part of your application that is too late or is incomplete, we won't be able to consider you. So like Janielle said earlier, make sure you start early and make sure you cover all your bases, read all of the information very carefully before you submit your applications. Next slide, please. So once you are accepted, you'll have a virtual orientation with HR and occupational health. Before you get here, you'll be hired as a casual staff member here at Johns Hopkins. We cover all the travel and housing. Either you'll be here on the Johns Hopkins undergraduate campus, or we also have a partnership with the University of Baltimore downtown for some students there. One of the main things that we do in our program is we have quite a bit of professional development and mentorship workshops. Like I said, you have the opportunity as a neuroscholar or an NS or a neurophyte to mentor high school students who are in our JHIBS program. So you get a little bit of experience with not just being mentored yourself, but having a chance to kind of work on your own mentorship skills. It'll be a full 10 weeks of research where you'll be working full time in the research lab of your choice, learning whatever skills pertain to that lab. We'll also cover if there's any software or anything that you need in order to facilitate your work in that lab to make sure that you have all the supplies that you need. And at the end of the summer, you get a chance to share your work. We get all of our students to do a poster presentation to discuss the work that they did over the summer. So you get some experience in how to put together a research poster, how to present it, how to talk about your research, and really get a chance to do some networking as well with many of the other faculty members who participate in our study, as well as graduate students who you may have worked with, postdocs and things like that. And then, of course, after that, we hopefully we'll see you come back in the subsequent summers. Up to 3 summers is allowed for our program, which is why we want you to start early. So thank you for your interest. If you have any questions about our programs, feel free to reach out to any of the 3 of us, Dr. Amanda Brown, who's our program director, myself, or Heather Thomas, who is our program manager. And again, those are all due February 1st, 2023. Thank you all.
Hi,
Thank you.
everyone. I'm with the SMART program at Baylor College of Medicine. Next slide, please. This is our team. Dr. Rice is our director. Delia is our program manager. I'm the coordinator, and then we have Miguel. He's the manager for the grants. So why do a summer program? We think you can confirm your passion for the science process, learn new techniques, join a team in research, researchers working for the next big discovery, network with scientists, and gain a new mentor too. We do have career professional development skills. Each student that joins our program gets to meet with Dr. Rice at least once a week, I believe, to work on your professional development skills. You get an opportunity to interact with a group of students that are like-minded, and everybody that comes, it's all across the country. And then we do have some international students that get to join us. The BCM SMART program, it's a 9-week program, and our applications are open. We do have, this was actually our last year's group. We do have seminars. If you can go to the next slide, one more slide. We do have a seminar schedule where you get to learn from other scientists and work on research development. We do have a grad school night where you get to learn how to apply to the program. And we do usually have a symposium that you get to attend. Next slide, please. Our SMART program is for undergraduates who are interested in exploring their career in scientific research. Applicants who graduate before the program will not be eligible. And this is a paid program, so you get paid about $5,000 for the 9 weeks. Next slide. Students will contribute to research efforts in more than 20 basic clinic science departments. In your app, when you apply for our program, you can decide, you can put your 3 main interests, and we try to match you with your interest, and you get a mentor, but you also have quite a few bench mentors when you come join us. Next slide, please. And these are our email addresses. You can always contact us, and I can share the link to the application and our webpage if anybody's interested. We are in Houston.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Amber Smith, and I'm the director of the Biological Interactions Summer Research Program at the University of Wisconsin. So I will skip through some of the things that other speakers have touched on, but please do reach out if you have any questions. So I first want to acknowledge this program is led by an amazing group of people. So as I said, I'm one of the directors. Professor David Wasserman, who is in medical genetics, is the other director. And then Alexius Lampkin is our program coordinator, and she's a fifth-year graduate student. So briefly, our goals are really focused on providing an authentic research experience. We're looking to diversify the pool of research scientists across many aspects of social identity. During the program, you'll have an opportunity to develop observation skills and learn from multiple perspectives, but also to develop skills and understanding of how to navigate the hidden curriculum within graduate school and large research institutions. Next slide. So our theme is biological interactions, and we're looking at how does the genetic component and the environmental component influence the phenotype, or what's the measurable characteristics. So because our theme is so broad, we have research that spans from molecular work all the way up to ecological across many different model organisms. And a real strength of our program is that we work to match student interests with a faculty that's doing research in that area. Next slide, please. So the program is structured in the following ways. The majority of time is spent in your mentored research experience. It's about 35 hours a week. And then we have 2 seminars that are offered on one morning to kind of condense that together. The Biological Interactions Research Seminar is focused on having faculty come in and talk about their research, but also developing research skills. The Professional Pathways Seminar is more around navigating mentor-mentee relationships, building other skills that will be supportive through your graduate and then STEM work career. And then finally, I want to note we have a really strong emphasis on science communication. There'll be multiple opportunities to not only learn about these different products, but to practice. And so students will prepare a research proposal poster to present about halfway through the program. And then at the end of the program, there's the opportunity to give a 10-minute talk at our symposium and to also write a research paper. Next slide. So briefly, the benefits of the program: there's a $6,000 stipend. We provide housing on campus at UW-Madison. There's a meal plan. You'll be given transportation to and from Madison, health insurance, as well as access to campus resources like the libraries or recreational facilities. Our brief timeline: the application is open now and closes February 15th. We'll begin reviewing those, and by early March, you'll have a if you're chosen for the program, then we'll reach out and we'll start the mentor matching process. So here you're matched with a mentor based on your research interests. You'll be set up to have a virtual meeting with them to see if you are also interested in their work and if you feel like the project is a good fit for you. You'll have an opportunity to decide, and if you feel like there's something not quite right in that match, we'll repeat the process as necessary. By about March 15th, we hope to have all acceptances, and then the program starts May 31st. Next slide. So these requirements are similar to many others, so I'll leave you to read those. For our application, we require 1 letter of recommendation from a faculty member, but you can upload 2 letters if you have 2 recommenders, a copy of your transcript, and then in lieu of a single personal statement, we ask you to respond to these 3 essays. So how does your participation contribute to your future goals? What areas of research are of interest to you? And this is particularly important because, again, we're trying to match you on your interests. So any details you can give there are great. And then finally, to describe any past research experiences. Next slide. So just a thank you, and I've put our information in the meeting chat. Feel free to reach out at any time.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Brittany Haynes, and I'll be talking to you about the summer opportunities at the National Institute of Health. Next slide, please. So I first want to start with just giving you a very quick overview. The NIH is the National Institutes of Health. So there are 27 institutes and centers, commonly called ICs. Of those 27 ICs, about 25 or 26 participate in the summer internship program. Each of the ICs run their summer programs differently. So I will not be talking to you about, one specific program, but I'll be going through the overall NIH process and what the application looks like, and really trying to point you in the direction of where you can find resources and information. So for the summer internship programs, the information on the left side of the slide is really just the general information for all of our summer programs. What I really want to point to here is that in your application, you can indicate an IC of interest. There is a caveat there. If you do indicate, as an example, that you're really interested in the National Cancer Institute, when people go to look at your application, they will filter by that IC and will only see you for NCI. So if you want to kind of decide, I just want to be at one IC, indicate that in your application. If you have more broad interest or you're not sure where you want to go, please do not indicate an IC on your application, and then every institution and center will be able to see your application. Under this umbrella here, what I'm showing is that there are a number of different summer internship programs within the NIH. So we have our general summer program, and then under that, there are specific programs geared at certain populations. I will get to a slide that just shows what those specific requirements are for those programs, but again, just showing you kind of this general information. So the website that you really want to spend most of your time on is the NIH OITE website, the Intramural Training and Education website. And just so you know, intramural versus extramural, when you are perusing OITE, you're really going to be looking for intramural information. That is the research that's being done on site at the NIH. Extramural is if you should get funding from the NIH and you're working at Morgan State, you're extramural researcher. So look intramurally. There are a number of programs that we have, but I'll be focusing on the summer internship program, which is now currently accepting applications. When you go onto the OITE website, you can go to our training programs and look for opportunities for prospective NIH trainees. At the top of this screenshot, you can see that there's this little breadcrumb trail so that you know where to go. There are some animations here. Can you click the first animation, please? So as I mentioned, there are these sub-programs. Those are the programs that were under the umbrella. These sub-programs have specific requirements as well as specific application deadlines. The thing about these programs is that they are exclusive. Can you go back? The thing about these programs is that they are exclusive. So when you apply to a sub-program, your application is going directly to that program. Until the selections are made for that sub-program, others across the ICs, across the NIH cannot see your application. Only those through OITE can see your application, and they match you with mentors across the institutions and centers. Next animation, please. There are programs that are specific to certain ICs within the NIH, such as the BSIP and DSRTP. These ones, you have to either apply directly through the SIP applications, or you have to reach out to the specific institute and center and get their requirements for the applications. One more animation here. This panel on the side is going to be super useful for people who are applying. It gives you information on how to write a successful application, what your resume will need. So this is the federal government. Our requirements for a resume are very different than what you see in academia. So please take a look at these really helpful links on the side. Next slide. So this is just showing the different sub-programs. There are some animations here too. So for the general SIP program, these are the requirements that I showed in my previous slide. For the remaining programs, if you're a community college student or if you're a rising college, sophomore or junior, these programs are specific for those populations. If you are interested in a specific program, please go ahead and apply to that. They are more competitive, but if you are a good match to that program, your chances are going to be a lot higher. The application deadlines are different for the different programs. The general SIP program application deadline is March 1st, but there are some that are due December 16th, January, February, so it will depend on what you're interested in. The reference letter deadlines are also different. I cannot stress enough, your reference letter must be in by the deadline. Your application is not complete if you do not have those reference letters, and you will not be selected for the programs. Next slide, please. So it's a lot of information. There's a lot of ICs, but there is some program contacts that you can reach out to. At the top of this page, it lists all of the ICs within the NIH that participate in the SIP program, as well as the email addresses for people for you to contact. I can't stress this enough either. Reach out to people. It's a lot of information. The NIH, the federal government, is a beast. It is one that should be conquered. So please make sure that you're reaching out, you're asking questions. These are your taxpayer dollars, put them to work. At the bottom of the screen is also, to the right of the screen are the contacts for those specific programs that I mentioned as well. Again, reach out. Yewan is amazing. She will help you with whatever you need and put people to work. That's what we're here to do. Next slide. So just some important dates. The application portal is open. The general deadline is March 1st. There will be a webinar on January 10th going over the application process, the different programs. Please register. If you're interested in some of those sub-programs, January 10th will be a little late because those applications are generally due late December, early January. But if you want to apply to the general summer internship program, that will be really helpful for you. Next slide. And these are just some helpful websites. Again, peruse around. It is a lot of information, but it really is worth it. The NIH is an amazing place to do research, and you will have a number of opportunities to present, to network, and to just kind of get engaged with federal government and what it's like to do research in that space. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to all of the presenters today. It was